Awesome. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the fifth session of Candu's Youth Connect for the year of 2025. I'd like to first introduce myself. My name is Fearence Francis, or my Plains Cree name is Pascual Mostos Kawichi Matawe Matatigasan, and I'm excited to be your host today. A little more about me is that I'm a proud member of Pipebot First Nation located in southern Saskatchewan. I'm currently enrolled into the First Nation University of Canada, and I currently serve as the National Student Director for CanDo. Whether you're joining us for the first time or you're returning as a participant, we're grateful to have you here. Just a little bit more about the CanDo's Youth Connect. It's a platform to empower Indigenous youth and allies across Turtle Island to participate virtually to discuss topics such as economic development, lands development, and entrepreneurship. Some past topics that were covered in the most recent Youth Connects were economic development projects with First Nation communities, with Nicholas Labucan, and our most recent session was with Kyron Potts, making space for Indigenous creators. Before we dive in, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the incredible support from the Starbucks Foundation. Without their partnership, this series wouldn't be possible. So a big thank you to them. Also, before we begin, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items. If you'd like to speak, please use the raise hand function. Make sure to grab some water and a notepad in case you want to take notes, and stick around to the end because we'll be doing a $100 gift card draw for those who complete the evaluation. Your feedback is crucial to making other future Youth Connect sessions. So yeah, let's get into the highlight of today's session. Our guest speaker, Harlan Kingfisher. I'll just go over a quick introduction to Harlan, and he'll take it from there. So Harlan Kingfisher is from Sturgeon Lake First Nation in Saskatchewan. He is the CEO of Smudge the Blades, the first Indigenous hockey clothing brand with a powerful cultural impact. Since its launch in 2021, Smudge the Blades has gained visibility in the Indigenous community and has been featured on major platforms like CTV, Global News, APTN, and the NHL. Harlan uses social media to advocate for Indigenous representation in hockey and combat racism in the sport. The brand won the 2021 Powwow Pitch and was a finalist on Bears Lair TV in 2024. The same year, TikTok named Smudge the Blades one of 6 Indigenous visionary voices in small businesses. With proceeds from the brand, Harlan supports Indigenous youth by covering hockey fees and equipment, helping hundreds of young players across Turtle Island pursue their dreams in the game. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Harlan. The floor is now yours, Harlan.
Hey everybody, thank you for that deadly introduction. It's pretty cool just 4 years later listening to somebody talk about Smudge Blades. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't realize when I first started my clothing brand or a business in general that it would get to where it's at today. And it was all due to when people started a business, especially Indigenous business, people don't realize that the Indigenous community across Canada, even in the United States, the support system is there, and it starts with family and friends when you get going. But if you stick to it and you work hard and you keep going, it starts a trend, and everyone wants to be involved at it. And that's what I did with my business. I came out the gate running. But before before I talk about my business really quick, so just like you were saying, Harlan Kingfisher from Sturgeon Lake First Nation, Saskatchewan, and just north of Prince Albert. And I'm really happy, CanDo, invited me to come speak. I tried coming out last week, but I was busy filming the movie. Today, though, I'm happy I'm here, talk about Indigenous business with whoever's in the chat today. But like I said at the very end, yes, I love, one of my passions is seeing other Indigenous entrepreneurs, start their business and see them work hard at it and see it grow and see them doing really great things. So I really enjoy helping along that process too. So if you have any questions, like I said, raise your hand. I can stop, or at the end we can do a question and answer period. I'm happy to I'm happy to be here and answer as many questions as you guys have. Starting a business though, right? I've never started a business before. When I first started Smudge Blades, nobody told me how to start it. Nobody gave me direction. Nobody did any of that stuff. I just knew I had an idea that, I really wanted to try and create something that wasn't out there before. But I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how to, create an online business. I didn't know how to create merch. I didn't know how to do all this stuff. So what I did was I took the time at the very beginning of my business. I had this idea for like 10 years, 10 years running. Like, I had all these funny sayings, and I used to wear this clothing brand called Gong Show Hockey. It was a hockey clothing brand. Just funny sayings in there. So I had this idea, like, hey, what if we had like a funny Indigenous hockey clothing brand? So that's how the ball started rolling, right? I started creating these designs. It started about 10 years. I had all these designs and all this stuff saved, but I didn't know how to start. And I've seen other businesses on social media, Facebook and Instagram, other indigenous business start and fail. So many started and fail. So I said, okay, well, I really want to start this business, but I don't know, I don't know what steps to take. So I'm gonna try and do my homework as best as I can before I even jump out the gate. So I got to work. I started looking at, what other indigenous businesses are out there in my niche, my clothing brand, creating a clothing brand. How are they doing it? So the first one I seen at that time was Nietzsche Gear, Kendall Knitmaker. I seen him, what he was doing. And I actually messaged Kendall. I never knew Kendall before. I sent him a message being like, hey, Kendall, like, we kind of knew similar people, like, and he was so happy to. I reached out to him. He was so happy that I, was asking questions, so many questions, and once I got a feel of all the questions I was asking, and it was mainly they were like, how do I, if I want to market my gear, how do I want to do it? And he kind of explained to me how he did it, but I also wanted to make it my own too. So that was one piece of the homework, seeing indigenous business like Nietzsche Gear, and then I seen the Res Life was coming on, right? Treaty Six, another clothing brand. So I was kind of keeping an eye on what they were doing all at the same time. So I wanted to see how they were doing it. And at that time, a couple of years ago, there was a clothing brand called Ten Tree, where if you bought something, they would plant 10 trees from each item they sold. So I started getting this idea of like, hey, well, what if I created a clothing brand where I could give back somehow? And I started thinking about how I'm going to give back. But right away, it wasn't too hard because as a hockey player, an indigenous hockey player, man, I struggled when I was down there to play. I wore too big of skates. I wore old shoulder pads, elbow pads from the pawn shop. Like I grew up hard. My grandpa did whatever he could to help me play hockey. And my dad too. But my grandpa was the driving force behind me playing hockey. And so I started taking that. I started to have an idea of like, well, what if I created this brand and I gave back to indigenous youth, and that'll be my give back portion. I'll try to help indigenous youth play hockey, either by registration fees or hockey equipment. Just so they can play. So I had this idea of that, and I was like, you know what? I started looking at other clothing brands now, the big ones. What are they doing? The Nike, the Adidas. How are their posts doing? And I said, well, they're doing lots and lots of influencer type marketing. Like people are sending them gear. People are posting, all these big time sports people, influencers. They're all posting them showing like wearing their gear. And I was like, well, what if I can scale that down to indigenous? Let's try and grow my brand through indigenous influencers. Let's try to grow my brand through sharing photos of people wearing my stuff. Let's try to grow my brand of telling people, hey, if you buy something, are you going to be looking at like helping youth and helping indigenous youth succeed? So once I had all this idea planned, I had this whole plan, I had everything written down. I remember sitting at my table 4 years ago, 4 o'clock in the morning. I spent all night looking at everything, and then I sat back and I said, "I'm ready. I'm ready." I studied. I'm ready to launch this business. I put it out there the next day. I set up a Shopify website, and when I first started my Shopify website, I didn't realize, they were so good at emailing me back. But what I didn't realize that Shopify had an indigenous liaison working for them. Kyle St. Brennan, his name was. I had no idea. The moment I emailed Shopify, because I wanted to just get that up, trying to see if someone could help me, I got an email back from an indigenous liaison there that worked for Shopify. And he was like, hey, I love your idea. I love your plan. Let me help you with your website. So I let him go to work, didn't charge me anything. And that was a huge piece of understanding online business, what I needed to do. I had no idea that you need to put shipping prices on your gear. For the first like week I was selling my gear with no shipping on it. I didn't know I needed that kind of stuff, but I learned quick. I learned. I sat down, I called Kyle and I was like, hey man, I'm losing money. I don't know how to add this, I don't know how to do this. These are all my issues within the first week. And Kyle took all those issues and made it right, and taught me how to do them. Though he taught me, explained everything to me. My business, now my online business was going. And social media world, like you guys probably see, I have an online business. Everybody's doing online now, whether it be Facebook, Instagram. But the thing is, the difference is with online business is the growing businesses that are doing good. I see it now. Even the Res Life, like they're growing. Decolonial Clothing, all these big indigenous clothing brands, they are constantly posting correctly. I see all these. What I mean when I say that is Facebook and Instagram, hashtags, putting your website on every single post, all this kind of stuff. I look now at some of the businesses, they always come to me, hey man, I started my business after the first month, it's working really good, but now its sales are dropping, nothing's working. I don't know what to do. And I look at their page, well, you haven't posted, 6 days ago you posted it. Why aren't you posting every day? Why aren't you using hashtags? Why aren't you putting your website on your post? Like why, right? And after I started doing that with them, I started seeing them post more. I started seeing them put hashtags in there. That's because Facebook and Instagram is a world where, you know, everything, someone punches in Indigenous hockey. If I hashtag that, all my posts are going to show up. And people don't understand that type of marketing. And anybody could sell anything, right? Everyone says like, you know, I sales aren't going good. I'm like, well, what are you doing to try and help your sales? And then they come to me and ask me. So I sit down with them and I'd be like, well, what are you doing? Like, how can you're gonna, like, for me, for my clothing brand, you know, people are buying my stuff. I haven't manufactured yet. I haven't manufactured any of my gear, but people are coming to my clothing brand because they see on, you know, they see it's a clothing brand and people are wearing it. People are proud to wear it. There's a reason why people are buying. People are wearing, right? I could have when I first started using Gildan blanks, like, and they're cheap. I don't know. I don't know there was other types of blanks there. That's just what I knew. Then I started looking at Stanmar and looking online at their warehouses, and I started getting samples. I'm like, okay, now this hoodie's better, feels more better, right? People are getting their gear now and actually feeling the quality and enjoying the quality. So I started jumping in that direction, kind of making the best decisions for my business. My business, so when people bought something, you know, they'd be proud to wear it. It didn't fade, didn't break, stuff like that. And that's what I worked really hard to do. And then everybody, like I said, you can have any type of business, but how are you going to market it? It all comes down to marketing. Everything comes down to marketing. How are you going to market it? You know. And when I went to influencer type marketing, I wasn't asking like the Ashley Bulls. I wasn't asking the hockey players. I wasn't asking these people to post. I just said, hey, I'll have a clothing brand. Here's all my stuff. I send them photos. Do you mind if I send you some free stuff? So I put the money aside. I was doing my sales and actually started posting. All these people started posting. Now my brand's rolling now, right? Now the ball's rolling. And a big part of, you know, scaling business is making sure you know how to do it quickly. And I didn't know how to do that. You know, within the first 3 months, I was featured on CTV News and CBC News and Global News, and it snowballed like crazy. I was making $14,000 a day, $21,000 a day, 16. I made 225,000 in my first 3 months of operation, and I had no idea how to handle all that. So right away, when I got to that point, I had all these orders, hundreds of orders. I had to reach out to a team. I got on the phone because I couldn't do everything myself. I couldn't have this lady that was doing my gear before, like, working on it nonstop. Like, she was getting flooded with stuff. So I called this guy out of Saskatchewan. He had a big team, and he took on my work, and that was a huge part of my success at the beginning. Is having someone, you know, do all the hard work, and I just stuck to the social media. But after a while, you know, they lost. After a while, when you do that, you kind of lose your business a little bit. You kind of lose the passion for it. And up until last year, I brought my business back because they weren't sending gear out in time. You know, as a business, everything's always rolling. Something's always happening too, right? You're always trying to keep up. And so that's what I did. I took all my stuff back. I bought a heat press. I worked with an Indigenous business to do my DTF transfers. Started doing everything myself. Started growing my own brand again. I jumped on the TikTok, not realizing TikTok was a whole different ballgame for business. And it grew I think 84% of my sales now are from TikTok. It's just what it is. And I see people, you know, trying to jump at TikTok and businesses trying to jump at TikTok. And I see so many people on there not knowing how to post, and you know what I mean? It's such a different world on TikTok. But before I did that, like I said, I jumped on TikTok, but I watched everybody first. I seen how other businesses were doing it, how were clothing brands doing it, how were all these people doing it. So when I started posting, trying to find my niche on TikTok, my Indigenous hockey niche, I had to make it funny. I want Indigenous people to see it. I wanted to have you know what I mean? I wanted to have that community follow me to TikTok. And they did. And, you know, I've been on TikTok for 2 years. I was featured on, like you said, a Visionary Voice last year, and I just did an interview with TikTok again for TikTok Canada. They're going to be doing another thing on me this year pretty soon. I think next month they're going to be posting. So I thought that was really cool, you know, just the people that recognized me and my clothing brand, and were like, on TikTok, I've grown over there so good because a lot of the people on TikTok, in terms of clothing brand and businesses, they like to see like the small guy get big. They like to see the small Indigenous business grow. They like to see this, and then you're here. So you see a lot of my posts on TikTok. It's like, I started from here, but now look at me. You know, I started this, now look what I'm doing. people, that's a TikTok algorithm. That's all planned. That's me doing it planned. I'm creating these posts because I know it's going to hit on the algorithm and go and get out there. And whenever I do a post on TikTok now, I see all the people coming in. My website's there, and it just translates to sales. Now I'm on TikTok and I'm thinking, well, hey, all these other businesses now they're doing lives. People are selling on live. Like it's a huge thing on TikTok. I didn't know, I had no idea about that. I tried it out. I did my homework. I watched people do lives, what they were doing, how they were selling, how they were promoting themselves. I watched. I sat there for hours watching some clothing brands and businesses do it. And I was like, all right, writing notes. This is what I gotta do. So my first live I did, I put a little thing up top, a little sale. I gave away a hat, all this kind of stuff. I had my laptop on me because I know that the consumer is looking at me through the screen. I'm showing them, hey, look at you. Who's that in Saskatchewan? Who's that in BC? And all my little dots were lining up where people are on their computers at home on my website. And I was showing them that, and the people are like, oh, that's me. Oh, I bought something. Oh, thank you for your sale. Like I started following people, what they were doing. And because on TikTok and people just in general, they like getting that recognition, even if it's through a phone. Now I go on live, it's $1,000, $1,500 every time I go live. One day I had no sales, and I'm gonna try this 10 o'clock at night. I'm just gonna try to prove it again, my fourth time in a row. I haven't had no sales all day. It's been a quiet day. 10 o'clock at night. I'm gonna try. I'm just gonna see if it's legit. No one. And I went online before midnight. I had 1,500 in sales, just talking to people and talking to people through the phone, and it was a whole different thing. So TikTok Canada reached out to me and wanted to know how my business is doing and how I'm scaling it on TikTok and how the lives are going. So that's the next thing you're going to see about me on TikTok. On TikTok Canada, will be posting. It'll be about Indigenous business and how I scaled it and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's been an amazing journey so far. And like you guys seen, probably if you haven't heard yet, but we're making a movie too on Smudge Blade. So I never seen my clothing brand become a movie, and to see like Ed Helms and Paulina Alexis and Jana Schmieding, all these amazing actors going to be in it. I was in it. Cody Lightning, young Victor, producer, filmmaker. Just to see, I remember being on set, just sitting there and just being like, man, like where we've come from, where like the whole point of my clothing brand was to grow Indigenous business and also to grow, just in being Indigenous, get our name out there. So we don't have to deal with racism. We don't have to deal with all that stuff because nobody knows about any of that kind of stuff. So my whole point is right now is I'm trying to create that space everywhere I go. I'm reaching for as much as I can to try and create the next space for the next Indigenous business. I'm always doing something to try and create, and trying to knock down all the doors because I know there's a lot of Indigenous business coming up. I know there's a lot of entrepreneurs that have ideas. And if I could help in any way, kind of even just 4 years ago, it was so hard to break into anything. Now, I was the first one to work with the Edmonton Oilers for an Indigenous hockey night. Now you see it all over the place. Every Indigenous hockey night's everywhere now. I was the first one. But I worked my butt off to fight for that. I emailed and emailed and emailed and phoned this, emailed and emailed, and then I got in touch with. Finally, they're like, "Hey, we're gonna work with Lance Cardinal for a design. We want you to be the clothing brand." Then it was done. I was like, but I put the work in. I put really, really a lot of work in for that to happen, and to see it now, I don't get a lot of credit from other, I don't get a lot of credit for that. I don't get a lot of. Harlan Kingfisher was the first one to do, you know what I mean? That never happened. But I don't care. I see it. I can see it now. I see what it did and where it went, and yeah, I'm just excited to be here. So, do you have any questions right now? Up until this point, like I talked so much, but I love it. Brownie, Mary, Catherine, Kayla. Oh, there's a bunch of people in here. Emily. I don't see anybody's faces though. Yeah, but you guys have any questions right now? As I do when I do these talks or any like I'm go to youth conferences, talk about my story. There's a lot of so Smudge the Blades is just a clothing brand, right? It's just a clothing brand, but that's just what people see at eye level. You know what I mean? The Indigenous hockey player, the Indigenous struggle, the story that I tell is my hockey journey. The failure and the addiction that I went through to come out of that. I've traveled. I'm traveling this weekend. Friday, I fly to Webequie, Ontario. So it's a 5-hour flight north of Winnipeg to go speak at their career fair, and then I come back and I go to a conference in Winnipeg. and then I fly to Minneapolis. So I've done 20 conferences already this year, just to not only tell my entrepreneurship journey, but my, why my clothing brand is what it is. Indigenous hockey. It's not just a clothing brand. It's a, it's a cultural celebration. And when I put on every stamp of my clothing, I put, maybe I can see it, from the Reds to the ring. I don't know where it is. From the Reds to the ring. And that's what my story is called when I go talk to these youth, or anybody. From the Reds to the ring. It just tells, how I got from here to here. And, Indigenous business related, it's been crazy, because you don't expect you don't expect a lot of people to take Indigenous serious. You know what I mean? In this world right now, to take Indigenous seriously right now is a tough task. Where I felt like I fought my way all the way up to where I got to. Everything, clothing brand, man, just trying to be on social media, trying to be on CTV News, you're always gonna get this clap back from the non-Indigenous, the haters out there. Even when you start a business. When I started a business, before I got going on my business, I sent so many designs to all my buddies. All the hockey players that I knew, everyone that I knew, I said, "Hey, what do you think of these hoodies? Would you wear them? Would you wear them?" Like half of the people said, "No, I wouldn't wear them. It's a dumb idea." Half people, like family and my good friends, like, "Man, that's funny. That's a really good idea." You know, so I had 50-50. And that's how it's going to be through your entrepreneurship, man. It's going to be, it's not an easy 1, 2, 3 thing, because you see other people doing it. You might look at my clothing brand, like, oh, he's got 150,000 followers, and he's you know what I mean. He saw his post. Someone's wearing his gear. Oh, Andrew Fearence is wearing his gear. Ashley Collins wearing his hoodie. Like, I want people to wear my stuff. You have to put the work in. You have to email people, message people, talk to people. I did all that. I reached out to everybody. So now any business that comes up, I was talking to a lady at the movie set, and she had a beating, and plus a clothing brand. She was trying to grow it, and now she's like, how do you grow it? And I was saying, well, A, you're here with me here. A, you got, and then B, you got, we got Paulina Alexis sitting over there. We got this so and so sitting over here. Kendra Roystruck's over here. We got Off the Reds is down there in the stands. You have all these people here that have millions of followers. Why don't you give them a hoodie? She's like, oh my God. She left, go get to her truck, got some hoodies, got some beady earrings, gave them to some people. Like that's how you grow it. That's the third time I did that. That's the third time I spoke to an entrepreneur, and they're like, how do you do it? I'm like, well, like, even one lady was me. I'm like, the way I grew it, I told her, influencer marketing. I sent all my stuff out. I spent a little bit of money. She's like, well, here's a blue jean jacket, a custom blue jean jacket she gave to me. You're my first one. And what did I do? I post on social media and tag her and stuff like that. So, you're always got to think of ways to grow, and ways to, if a path one way is the no, and another path to no, just keep on. There's so many paths available for you guys. And anything you guys want to do, but there's so many paths available for you guys to reach out to this person, reach out. It's never going to be a no, 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 fail, 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 right? Always someone, and especially in the Indigenous business world, where I've been there for 4 years now, and the owners, like, the people that run the businesses, they're such amazing people, and they're so open to help, and tell people how they did it. For me, I put it on TikTok, $22. If you want to know how to grow a clothing brand, I put it on there, like, it's step exactly how I did it. And there's a lot of, it's a lot of time, but a lot of, homework. Like I said, I put the homework in. I watched everybody else do it, how they were doing it. I spent hours on my table, and made sure I did it. I made sure I did it, and it worked. Everything I did worked, and it was such an amazing, like, to see where it's at now. And I'd love to help you guys. And message me, and even after this, you guys can email me, message me. But if you have any questions while I'm here, you guys can ask me questions. Don't be shy. A big part of Indigenous business is not being shy too. I don't know if you guys know that. There's so many people that are like, well, I'm too shy to go on TikTok. I'm too shy to post on it. You can't be shy in the Indigenous business world. You cannot be shy. It's the one thing you cannot be. You got to break out of the comfort zone. Ask a lot of questions, post. You gotta do everything. Because a big part of our culture is, you guys know, shy. Everyone's shy, and you can't grow, and you can't be a business owner if you're going to be shy in the entrepreneurial world. You have to be able to do it, and be able to do it, and be able to be proud of your business. Pavo Pitch, Bears Lair TV, the ones I won, and I was on a finalist on Bears Lair. Speaking in front of people, being able to tell your business, being able to tell your whole entire world, your business that you have, your ideas in 1 minute. Pitch it to me. You know what I mean? We have 1 minute. Let's go. Let's see what you got. And then you talk and you just be so proud of what you're talking about. And, there's a big difference of people. Even if I did a 1 minute pitch about my business and I was saying, and I was just so quiet and I was like, reading something and just like showing my facial, and even though it was a good idea, like you don't have no pride and no not be able to do it like that in your business. It's a tough as a judge or someone looking at your business, being like, well, why do I want to invest in this person? They don't even look like they're ready, or they don't even look like they're proud of what they're doing. So when I took my business and I did my pitch, I was just like, I'm so happy and proud of my idea, and so happy you got to show that through your because you're the face of your business. The people that are you don't when you think about a business and you're creating it, like you are the face of your business. You're the one that's got to go on social media. You're the one that's got to put yourself out there. And I keep on telling people you can't be shy, because if you get to TikTok and you create a post and you do one and you get 20 views and you stop, and like no one watched it, like you just gotta keep posting. Facebook, Instagram, all that kind of stuff. All marketing is huge right now. And what people don't know too is Indigenous business is huge right now. All these businesses, they're trying to look for Indigenous business to support. It's kind of it's kind of weird to say it like that, because like back then nobody wanted Indigenous business to be like, everyone was a shy or scared to be. Now the way the path's going, we're seeing land acknowledgements at hockey games. We're seeing all this stuff. We're seeing these businesses reaching out, being like, hey, like, they want to grab onto Indigenous business now, and it's amazing. And that's I'm here for it. Ask me some questions, guys.
I just have a quick question there, Harlan. Very
Yeah.
inspiring, what you all talked about so far. Um, One of the things I wanted to ask you is, how did you deal with the racism in a healthy way? It's so easy just to do it right back.
Yeah.
So,
Sorry, 1 second. I'll ask that question 1 second. Someone just came to my door. Sorry again. Hello. Oh, here for the AC unit. Yeah, I'm just on a Zoom call right now. You come in though. It's just in the basement. Sorry.
Get you to turn it before me if you could.
Sorry.
I'll get you to turn it on.
Turn it on. Okay. Sorry guys. I'm just gonna go over here. Someone just showed my AC unit. All right, it's on right now. Oh. Are you guys still here?
yeah, we're still here, Harlan.
How do I get? Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. All right. Yeah. So sorry, with the racism in terms of like Indigenous business, or like just like, yeah.
I think just in general.
Yeah. Well, because no matter what no matter what I did, I constantly got the comments. I even got emails from people, you know. But you have to how I fought through that, is I had a really good explanation about why my business is what it is, why I created my business. So I had this email that I send out, or messages to people I send out. A lot of them I have to just, you're gonna get that no matter what. As an Indigenous person, not even in business, and no matter what you do, even on TikTok, I'm dealing with the racism every day. It's crazy. But I just delete them and move on, because you don't want to put too much energy into constantly combating and emailing people and trying to prove why it's okay, because there's literally millions of people in the social media world, billions. It's always going to change. There's always going to be people coming in. So I just kind of tended to, at first I email people and message people back, but then I realized, like people, there's so much of it. There's so much of it that there's people out there that just simply hate, and they just simply don't want to see Indigenous win. So I just started deleting everything. I wasn't even reading stuff. I see the first couple of words, I delete it, because it didn't matter. Some of it was from other businesses, and I would call them out. Some of it was from other businesses, I would call them out. Some of it was from, not me in general, but I get a lot of kids and moms emailing me through the hockey system, being like, hey, like, this happened, our goalie on our team was supposed to get new gear. They didn't. The city threw all of us all the native kids on one team, and they think that's terrible. It is terrible. And why would you throw all the native kids on one team and not give them the proper tools to play? So stuff like that. I started emailing hockey associations, those kids, I'd be like, hey, I'll buy your gear. So I bought them the gear, bought them the goal equipment. And I started doing it that way. I started doing it in a positive way because the more, as a business, the more positive you are in terms of like teaching, and showing cultural appreciation, instead of, um, the more people want to support you. And I didn't realize that at first. I didn't realize, by me posting photos of like someone wearing my stuff or like a non-indigenous person wearing my stuff, I didn't realize how much people would see it on social media, share it, reshare it, and then all of a sudden get more sales because somebody seen someone wearing my stuff on social media. And now, like I said, the perception of the buyers out there, the people that are buying the stuff, is they want to be seen, they want to be recognized. So that's why my plan that I did of showcasing all the youth, showcasing people wearing my gear, it worked because they would share the stuff, and then other people wanted to see it. Then youth were looking at it and be like, "Hey, I want to be on the cover of Smudge Blades page on Facebook," and they send me more stuff, and their parents would be buying more stuff. The more I shared, the more people would buy. And the non-indigenous people, it's usually all the same because once they see something big and they're growing, they'll be like, hey, well, their biggest thing is they don't want to they're scared to wear our stuff because they don't want to cultural appreciation over appropriation. I always say, man, if you're buying from an indigenous business and you're wearing it proudly, that's really really good. If you're buying from like Sheen or something crazy and buying some fake indigenous stuff, that's appropriation. It's not good. So I do a lot of explaining for the non-indigenous as well. But even today, I still on my social media, if I see someone being racist, I'll just delete it and block them off my pages because there's zero time in anybody's because if you let that thing slide on your social media, people, not you, but like people would combat that. Then you have this fight going on in your comment section on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok, and it doesn't look good for the business either. When you're thinking about businesses, you go to a business page and you're looking at a photo. Oh, that's a nice hoodie, and you go down to the comments. What do they say? Oh man, there's like a racial fight going on in the comments section. They didn't delete it. Like that's crazy. So always gotta be aware and be aware of your page and delete stuff because it's always gonna come. And I'm always constantly doing it on TikTok because TikTok's wild. TikTok is wild for that. Anybody else have any questions?
I actually have a question for you. It's Jessica. How does your storytelling in your shirt play a way in your background? Like, so how did you create these with your background?
Like with my sorry, my like my design and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I knew that the indigenous culture is humorous, right? That's number one. We're a humorous culture, whether it be through when we're sad, we like to make fun of it, So, and I grew up like that. I grew up on the res. I grew up, my grandparents, my grandpa making fun of me. I grew up with all that. I grew up with that humor, and I cope with it like that too because in our culture, unfortunately, we do lose a lot of family, lose a lot of friends on the reserve, and there's always funerals, but those funerals are time to, meet family you haven't seen in forever and laugh and tell stories. So with my clothing brand, I wanted to tell a story with every design that I made, whether it be pre-syllabics, my pre-syllabics design, I wanted to make sure that if someone looked at it, you'd be like, oh, what's that say? Every piece of my clothing is going to create a conversation. And when I started thinking of designs, what I wanted to do, I wanted to be, when someone read it, I wanted to be funny. First funny, and then make it tied in with hockey a little bit. So like ever stick dangles, what am I one? Well, indigenous people are going to understand ever stick because everyone's talking about dangles. Some people didn't even know what they were buying it. Some people didn't even know what dangles meant. So, but they still wanted to buy it, or they wanted to do like Turtle Island hockey. It's a big one. Like First Nation hockey sensation. I started tying these funny ideas in that I had, like that I wanted to like I wanted to create conversation with my biggest piece. So like anything that someone wore, if you saw it at the hockey rink or theater, it would just instantly start laughing and create a conversation, and that was huge. Also because within the indigenous culture and mainly indigenous people buying my gear, people want that. People want that funny saying on their gear. People want to showcase our indigenous culture within hockey. So that was my way, and And as I create designs more, I try and put out one or two every year. Just change it up a little bit. I always have designs and people give me ideas, and so I want to do like my last drop last year was like a deadly anti collection. So like red hot, you know what I mean? So I did two designs like that. Now I looked at the sales; they were kind of low on that design, so maybe I might take one off and add another one. So I'm always going every time I have a design, I want to work on it and get it out there because you never know what's gonna sell. You never know what design's gonna sell. I had Bannock and Lard makes my slap shot hard for when I first started, but I didn't launch it. I had a feeling it wasn't gonna sell. I had a feeling, and then it took me 2 years, and I was like, you know what? I had this. That's my original design. I really like this design, and I'm just gonna do it. And it was this huge now. It's one of my best sellers. So people, yeah. So it's cool to see it like that. Like you have these ideas and designs and plans and you try and do your best to put them out there. And if things don't work, it's always, I always tell indigenous business, other businesses that are asking me and come to me for advice. It's like, if it doesn't work, you're not going to make $1 million in one night. You're not going to make, it takes a while to understand. It takes a while to learn. It takes a while to get that, like work on your business and make sure it works properly. So yeah. Yeah, I think you're muted. Anybody else got any questions?
I think the only other question I have, Harlan, is aside from starting your clothing brand and your brand in general, where were you in life before that? What were you doing for work? What was your occupation? Things like that.
Yeah. So I currently am still I went to school for power engineering, and I got a job here in Alberta, here north of Edmonton, and I've been here for 13 years now. But in my career that I chose, there's a lot of you work a 12-hour shift, but there's a lot of downtime. So it gave me a lot of opportunity to keep on doing my business stuff that I want to do, because as an operator and a power engineer, I didn't want to quit that job. I love what I do. So when I started my clothing brand, I wanted to make sure it wasn't taken away from work, but also was a good side hustle. And so I was doing that, and also my kids. We're a really busy family. I have 4 kids. So my oldest boy's 17, youngest boy's 8. My daughters are 14 and 12. But 4 years ago when I started my business, it was my kids do a lot of acting, so we were traveling lots, traveling all over the place, Vancouver, Scotland. Like it was doing, so it was kind of I had to stay home most of the time because my business was growing. I didn't realize how quick it was going to grow, how big it was going to get right off the bat. So I had to kind of focus on that and take time away from the family a little bit too. So it was kind of hard at the beginning for myself because I wanted to travel I wanted to do so many things with my kids because they were doing such cool things. But I also had to be home and watch the house, watch my older boy and focus on the business, make sure everything was going, and it was awesome though because when I started my business, it gave me another thing to like work on to make sure that other hockey players didn't go through what I went through. That was my biggest thing because then when I was younger, I dealt with a lot of racism on the ice, off the ice. At school, being the only Indigenous kid at the school in Prince Albert, I was at for my classroom. So all these like what I mean, all these ideas and memories and how I was doing it, how I was growing. The main purpose of it was just to create that space that Indigenous hockey players wouldn't get looked at the same because as my brand grew when I was on Sportsnet and TSN, people didn't even know about Indigenous hockey players and our struggle and where we came from. They knew maybe a couple like Jordan Tutu and what he went through, but no one knows. Nobody knew. So whenever I try and do everything I do now is to create that space to stop racism, to stop any issues that the next generation have, right? And I think I've done that so far. And now at the global scale, we're making a movie, and the movie is gonna be such a good teaching for everybody, for non-Indigenous mainly, but the Indigenous population. You're gonna see it's gonna be hard to watch because a lot of us grew up that way. A lot of us grew up, going home and dealing with addiction at home with our grandparents or our parents, right? So our movie is not only going to tell that story, but also going to teach people that had no idea. And that was my whole goal. And I started with, you know, an idea, and I worked my butt off to get where it's at today, but also to try and create space and make sure everyone knows, you know, about our Indigenous people after that. So
I actually have another question. How did you manage your work life and your family life?
yeah, my work life, family life was eventually, you know, it got really busy. It got really busy for everything I was doing, and I think like my wife, she's a stay-at-home mom, but she was able to handle the load of the kids and what they were doing. And for me, you know, I was working full time, doing my business, but I was able to manage it because I did a lot of my business um, off. Like I did a lot of my social media work at the beginning, just on social media. I had to find a team that could do all my gear for me. So they were doing the labor, they were doing the hard work. I'd pay them a little more, but I was able to dial that back and just focus on social media posts, take photos, ask, you know what I mean? Which made it a lot easier. And as my brand grew, and like I said, I kind of lost the passion of it for a while, about a year ago, because it was doing its own thing, it was just doing everything by itself. Didn't post much. Now though, you know, after the year, I took it back. I had that passion again to like create and be more involved with it, and you know, travel more. Now I'm doing these talks. I'm doing I get to travel and see communities, and they want to hear my story. They want to hear, you know, a lot of the communities that invite me out haven't. A lot of Indigenous people there from the community reaching out to me and coming up to me asking, like, hey, like, how do I start my business? How do I? There's so many beaters out there. There's so many people that have ideas, and I always try my best everywhere I go is sit down with them and try and explain to them exactly how I did it and how, like, what worked, what doesn't work now. But it's always changing. Like right now, TikTok was working for me and it's where it's at, but it could be changing next year. So it's a moving thing that you always have to pay attention to. But what you can do is jump into Indigenous business and entrepreneurship and be way behind with like old ideas and old plans and how to market and all this kind of stuff, because you're gonna start it and fail. And that's what I tell everybody, like, it's always changing, but it's always good to do homework first and then reach out to a bunch of people that have done it and then have a plan, because it's, if you don't know what you're doing, it's a humbling experience. It's very humbling. Yeah. And I went through that. I went through that humbling experience, but I did a lot of homework. I didn't stop. I did not stop. And I kept going. And now it's amazing. Yeah. Anybody have any questions? Thank you guys. I love all this. I love the questions. I love talking about it.
Looks like we got a shy crowd today.
Yeah. And I was thinking, I was looking at you, I was looking at Can for, are you guys doing some other events coming up? I've seen possibly some other conferences I saw.
Yeah, we have the EDYS, the Economic Development Youth Summit in August.
Hmm.
And then we have our Indigenous coaching with Kendall Nutmaker. That will
Yeah.
start in
Oh, yeah.
August. Yeah. And then we have the Alberta Links to Learning one too. So that will be in October though. So,
Awesome.
yeah. Exciting things to come.
No, that's good. I love it. I love it. I've been traveling and for the last I've been pretty busy, honestly, traveling to these conferences, Indigenous business conferences, and telling my story. But a big thing I love doing is I love going. Like I went to a couple of Indigenous business ones, and they're such an amazing conference to join and be there, and you got so many people there and asking questions and ideas, and man, it's just so cool to see. Yeah. Anybody else got any questions? Kayla, Catherine, what are you guys doing?
I don't know what to say. I'm just like taking it all in, but it was very inspiring. I appreciate you for sharing. and
you.
telling your story. It's pretty cool. Made me laugh a few times.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you guys like whenever I try to grow my business too, like I try to grow it on social media, like on TikTok. You guys probably see my videos. I'm always posting. It's not just business. I'm always posting a story. You know, I'm trying to tell, you know, a story of like perseverance, addiction, dealing with it, being able to fight it, being able to, you know, turn it into something great. So when I do posts like that though, I do a lot of posts like that. A lot of communities, that's where they find me. A lot of those communities that want to have me out, they find me on TikTok. They look at all my posts and business and his story. And there's another thing because these talks that have me traveling, they're good for my business too. They're good for getting my business name out there and creating money and funds so I can help more kids. Because the biggest accomplishment that I've seen in my business is 3 years ago, I helped a mom out with her 2 kids, paying her registration fees, hockey skates, and they're in the WHL this year. So like it's so cool, to see. It's amazing, and I'm always trying to always try to have a give back portion to your business because that could be one little tiny step that's gonna make you jump ahead of someone else that's doing the same thing.
I think while we're on that topic, I have another question. How would a family go about like asking for support in like hockey fees or equipment, like when they reach out to you?
Yeah, they usually just email me. I have it on all my socials. I'll get an email. I got an email yesterday for Northern Alberta girls hockey team that won Native Pro Vs for the 3rd year in a row. And I'm looking at the email, and they want to help with jackets and like sponsor jackets. So I get email. Best way to message me on any of my socials. I get lots and lots of emails and lots of messages about that. So I have to try and pick through, go through each story, ask a lot of questions because it's not I'm not non for profit. It's all my profit. It's all my money from the clothing brand, right? That these talks that I do. So I'll go into it, and I don't mind it because if I can help, like I said, my whole goal is if I can help 2, 3 kids play hockey. You never know where they're going to be, and now and to see it firsthand, it's like what I did make a difference, and um,
That's awesome. Wow. Yeah. Thank you so much for, sharing your journey and your insights with us today, Harlan.
thank you guys.
Took a lot out of it. So yeah, thank you again, Harlan. I just still in awe, inspiring. Um, but besides that, if we don't have any more questions, I think we can wrap it up from here. So yeah, some closing remarks here. Yeah, it's amazing to hear your story and your experience and, working up to where you are now. It's nothing but inspiring. I also want to extend my gratitude once again to the Starbucks Foundation. They helped us make this Youth Connect possible. Their support allows us to create spaces for important conversations like this. Also, before we go, just a quick reminder: please complete the evaluation survey that we sent out after the session to the ones joining us. And yeah, thank you all for being here today. Stay safe, stay inspired, and we'll see you next time. Thank you, Harlan.
Yeah, see ya.
Yeah.